Welcome to the ToKnight Show with Superintendent Shannon Cheek, your go-to podcast for staying in the know about all the exciting happenings in your local school community. We know that we are stronger together, so today's conversation is designed to give you a greater opportunity to be actively engaged in the success of our students. And now, Mr. Cheek.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Shannon Cheek, and I want to welcome you to another episode of the ToKnight Show. Today we're recording. We're in about episode 7, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Want to encourage you to, if you haven't yet, to check out our website. All of the episodes are posted there, so we'd like to encourage you to do so. We have, this is recording number 7, but I think we have at least 5 or so up on the website already, so encourage you to go to that. Today, I'm thankful and excited, maybe a little bit nervous. I'm joined by Mr. Doug Davis. Mr. Davis teaches here at the high school and has really kind of spearheaded the conversation and started help getting this podcast off the ground. He's going to assist me today because we sent out a questionnaire. We wanted to just do a Q&A session today. So sent out a questionnaire to our community, to our students, and to our staff asking for some questions. So I collected those questions, and what we're going to do today with the help of Mr. Davis is just go through and try to answer as many as the questions that I can that were submitted. So we're going to try to get as many in as we can in about 20 minutes. So if I don't go as deep in answering the questions, and if you're one of those that asked that question out there, feel free to contact me in the district office. I'd be glad to sit down and further converse with you about any and all. So the number at the district office is 217-543-2511. So without further ado, I'm going to turn things over to Mr. Davis, who's going to start firing questions.
All right, well, we've got a lot of questions we're going to get to today. And the first one is really timely. The question is, what is the process that's utilized for calling a snow day?
Well, you're right. It's pretty timely because we've had to, unfortunately, I've had to utilize that process here recently. I think I have a little more gray hair than when I started 4 years ago, and it might be because of the snow day calling process. It's really, there's no science to it, really. It usually starts, I didn't usually watch the weather, but when I became a soup, I have found that I spend a fair amount of time looking at the weather from week to week. So it starts obviously before checking out the weather. Hey, we might have some weather coming. And then, of course, when it becomes more of a reality, then the conversations ramp up the night before. Those conversations extend to area soups. Hey, what are you seeing in your area? What are you seeing on your roads? What are you hearing from your transportation director? So those conversations are happening the night before. Of course, then I reach out to our transportation director, Jim Miller, and have some conversation with Jim about what are you seeing, what are you hearing, what are you thinking about the weather. All of those types of conversations are taking place, of course. And then if we don't call school the night before, which honestly I've tried to make a habit of, if we are going to have a pretty good idea that it's going to be nasty enough that we're not going to be on the roads, I try to make that call the night before. But sometimes we just can't. So if the situation is gray, then I get up about 4:30 in the morning. Well, let me back up. I usually don't sleep because I know I have to get up at 4:30. So by the time I roll out of bed at 4:30, I get out on the roads. And our district is massive.
It is.
To square miles. It's 252 square miles. So it extends 5 counties. So I get up and drive. Jim is very helpful. He also gets up and drives. Drive the roads, drive the country roads, try to go as far as we can, get some perspective of what the roads look like. And then again, that conversation with area superintendents happens. And then honestly, we try to make a decision by 6 and communicate that. It's not an exact science. There's probably somebody that's not in agreement with those decisions, but I really at least feel like, we do have a pretty systematic approach, and it is, we try to make the best decision we can.
Right. Well, and what a difficult thing when it's something that isn't an exact science. And of course, this isn't an exact science. It's probably one of the things that is difficult for you because you want to do the right thing every time. and no matter what decision you make, somebody's probably disagreeing with it. But
I would agree. I would agree that you do the best you can. I try to err on the side of caution,
Right.
of course. Recently we had a situation where, well, most recently where we had a day where it was still pretty icy. But by about 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, it had cleared up.
Right.
We don't have a late arrival, so
Right.
we had to make that call.
Right.
And I'm always going to err on the side of caution. So
Yeah.
the other thing that comes into play that I've been asked before, and I've actually seen people have posted on our Facebook, that we don't have school, and then often I'll put out that we'll make decisions about extracurriculars by noon the next day. It's just one of those situations where, frankly, the weather can be really bad in the morning.
Right.
And I don't want to, take away the opportunities that our kids have in extracurriculars. So we try to wait until about noon. And if the forecast is such and the roads are starting to clear up that it's looking favorable, then we'll go ahead and allow our kids to have those activities. So again, not an exact science, but we put a lot of thought into it.
Right. Now, the next question that we have is a little more general than this first one. The question is simply, what is it that you do as a superintendent?
I get asked this a lot, honestly, when I visit the grade schools. I like to get out and visit. I try to get out and be visible. And when I hit the grade schools, I get asked this question a lot. I get asked the second probably most popular question I get from the littles are, what do you actually do as a superintendent? And I get this one a lot. Are you the boss of everyone? Or they make a statement and say, oh yeah, you're the boss of everyone, right? So it's kind of cute when I get out and they ask that question. It's a great question, and honestly, the job of a superintendent, it looks different in each district. In a lot of larger districts, the role of a superintendent is much different. For example, where I came from, much larger district, a district of about 3,500 students total, K-12. They have, of course, a superintendent, but they also have a business manager that does the budgeting, that does the tax levy. They have director of curriculum that manages all the curricular decisions and a lot of the HR decisions. So in a small district, some may look at that as a disadvantage that I have to take on those responsibilities. But frankly, I don't see it that way. I see that it allows me to have my hand in every aspect of the job. So again, finance, doing the budget, doing the tax levy, a lot of HR decisions fall on the plate of the superintendent. In a lot of the work that I do related to curriculum or school improvement, I drive those discussions, but frankly, my administrative team is a part of that as well. So yeah, school improvement, finance, making decisions about personnel. So it is a broad question, and frankly, the job is pretty broad. So that gives a little snippet of what I do.
Well, and in a district that's the size of Arthur Lovington Atwood Hammond, having all of those different things that you do does give you the opportunity to have a well-rounded view so that everything's informed perhaps differently than if all of those things were broken up with different people in charge of them, which is pretty cool. And it kind of leads into the next question as far as what we're able to offer to the kids as far as well-rounded and how it applies. The question is, can you talk about the types of classes or experiences that we offer at the high school that prepare students for whatever life throws at them, preparing for a job, for college, for trades, etc.?
I think the most simplified way that I can answer it, first off, I think that for a district our size, we do a phenomenal job at this school and in our district of offering opportunities for our kids to figure out what they want to do, right? So I'm very happy and very proud to be a small part of that. I think the best way to explain it would be, I feel like we have 3 distinct pathways, and that doesn't mean that if you choose one that you can't dabble in the others, but we do have, I think, 3 pretty clear pathways where if you don't know what you want to do, you want to get some work experience and still get credit for school, we have a path for that, right? We have a class that is specifically designed for that, where you can get some experience in the workforce, you can learn some stuff about what it means to be a good employee, right? And then you can get some experience in the workforce hands-on. So we have that path. We also have, I would say, maybe a little bit more of a CTE, a career and technical education path, where if you don't really know, you can take some general classes to try to feel your way, and then you can prepare yourself for potentially going in the trades. We have a great ag program. New teacher. She was featured on one of our podcasts earlier and spoke about the classes that she offers in her area. We have Mr. Kessler, who again is going to be coming up on another episode that we've recorded. He does a phenomenal job of offering a wide range of classes in industrial technology. We have a comprehensive family and consumer science section. So I think if you go that route, it lets you again dip your toe in the water and see what's available in that path. And then I think we also do a great job, and I think really compete with schools larger than us for those students that are college bound. We offer a wide range of academically challenging courses, in addition to not just being challenging, but you can actually get college credit.
Yeah.
And my daughter in particular was one that benefited. We moved down here her junior year. And as a result of moving here and her taking advantage of some of the dual credit classes, she actually is this year finishing up with her bachelor's degree in 3 years. So it was really, really exciting to see. So I really do feel like a school our size does a phenomenal job of offering options.
Well, and opportunity. And, you know, it's so, when we hear about your daughter, I know that she's one of many students who left here with some things that really gave them an advantage, gave them a leg up. But the next question has to do with how to not only maintain and continue the advantages that we're able to offer, but maybe how we can expand some of those as well.
Yeah.
The question is, since we had a failed referendum regarding the facilities, what steps have we taken regarding the needs that are still there, and what does the future look like regarding addressing those needs?
Great question. Of course, we did have the failed referendum. I think some of the steps that we've taken, we sent some survey information out, tried to get some feedback, tried to really tried to say, okay, this failed. We hear you. Give us some feedback on why. Like, where did we fail? What did we do wrong? What did we not do well enough? And in addition to that survey, we also held some focus groups in each school, in each community. Similar format where we had a third party that led those meetings and conversations because we did not want to feel like we were biased in what we were getting back. So led those discussions and tried to kind of compare the survey results and those focus group conversations to get some clarity on what exactly the clear message was. I thought we did a nice job with that, frankly. There was a couple themes that came from that. One was we didn't know. We didn't feel like the communication was clear enough. Did not feel like we knew exactly what those plans were.
Right.
And again, we took that to heart. So this go around, we plan to try to do a better job of communicating exactly what we're asking for and providing opportunities for people to be involved. So we heard that loud and clear. Another a comment that rose to the top was, if you recall, we were asking for some pretty significant renovations and additions to the high school, where we were potentially going to ask to move our 6/8 up to the high school. Based on those focus group conversations, in addition to the survey information, we found that that was not a popular choice. So this go around, those needs have not gone away, as you mentioned. You're going to hear both Mr. Kessler and you're going to hear Mrs. Upoff talk about space. It's a problem for them, and they don't have the space. I was just talking with Ms. Sigmiller about scheduling for next year, and she was excited. Their numbers are high, but there's going to have to be some pretty hard decisions made because of space.
Yeah.
So opportunities are limited in those areas. So, so moving forward, I'm rambling a little bit, but moving forward, the plan is we've already started to have some conversation about the needs of this building in particular. Phenomenal building. It's been maintained.
Right.
It's a beautiful building. But there are spaces that are just not accommodating to what it looks like to educate a student now in this time. For example, I've talked about ag and industrial tech. If we had some more accommodating spaces, we could accommodate more students and probably offer additional classes.
Right.
Um, our cafeteria. If you step into our cafeteria, it's relatively small and not real inviting for kids. I mean, they fill the cafeteria up, and I see kids every period eating down my hallway. So that's an area. And just the general maintenance of the building. It's time. This is a tired building that needs some attention. So one step that we took already was we had, and we put this out on our Facebook. I think you were a part of that when we had BLVD come in, spend the day here.
Yeah.
They spent the day here gathering input from our faculty, gathering input from our students.
Right.
So that was kind of a fun day. I was out sick that day, unfortunately, but I got a lot of positive feedback. So they're going to take that information, and next steps are going to be for us to decide what we do. Like they're going to present some options, and those options will be centered around just this building. What can we do to impact the learning here?
Right.
Whether that's a renovation or total replacement. They're going to give 2 or 3 options and then start really a process that was similar to what we did last time, and that was getting input from community, getting input from staff, getting input from students, and really trying to gauge what our communities would support in regards to this building. Because we're in a situation where if you really come through our building here at the high school, it's time. It's time.
We've never had this many students in the building at one time, and as somebody who has one of the small classrooms, it breaks my heart when there's the occasional time when a kid will say, well, I wanted to take your class, but it was full. And that's just the reality of what we're facing. So I think those are, good things for the community to know.
Yeah, and I think that money is always going to be a concern. It's a concern. We were sensitive to that as well. Pretty large price tag to fully renovate or replace a building. It's significant.
It is.
And we're sensitive to that. One thing that I do know, I've experienced in this seat is from year to year, it doesn't get cheaper.
No.
We have talked about in the last few board meetings about tackling, we've done some improvements to our parking lots last summer. One of them that's significant is in significant need is Lovington, and that's on the docket to take care of next year. Well, we estimated that out last year, and just between last year and now this year, they're estimating almost a 17-18% increase in
right.
year. So it's always going to be an issue, cost. So we're sensitive to that. But short of the story is we're going to give it another go. My hope is that we're going to have a process in place pretty soon that will allow us to inform our public. And my goal will be to go to referendum in November of 2024. And based on the feedback we get, either ask for a pretty sizable referendum to renovate this building, maybe replace, just depends on the feedback. So yeah, hopeful.
It's one of those things that's constantly in flux as we have new opportunities, new students coming in. The next question has to do with a little bit of that kind of flux as well. The question is, what is the process that we take when determining if we want to add another activity, like an extracurricular activity or a sport? And what factors are considered in that process?
This is a question that actually came from one of our students. So I appreciate that question. I wanted to make sure I had time to get this in today. So great question. I think you do have to have some type of a systematic approach when you start looking at adding extracurriculars, whether it be a sport, whether it be an activity. Some of the things that we try to consider is you got to gather some interest. Who's interested in the activity? How you can do that? Word of mouth. There's probably a more scientific way of doing some surveying. I know actually most recently Mr. Seal had sent some survey information regarding cross country. So you can send surveys, you can word of mouth it. You try to gather, again, as much information as you possibly can. Who's interested? What kind of numbers are we looking at? I think one thing that needs to be considered as well, regardless if it's a sport or an extracurricular, is we need to be sensitive of what is going to be the result of adding this activity. Mostly it's probably going to be positive, but sometimes it can have a negative impact on other activities that are being offered at the same time. So that's not a deciding factor necessarily, but it's one that we have to consider. And then of course cost. right? You have to determine what is going to be the level of cost to implement this activity. And my big one that I always am interested in having a conversation with, whether it be a sponsor or a coach that wants to add a sport, is this sustainable? Like, are we talking there's interest short term, or is this going to be a long term interest? So it's hard. It's hard because we are a school that, is not great big. And we want to offer as many things as we can, but there is also at what cost?
Right.
Great question.
It absolutely is, and it shows how difficult a lot of the things that go into decision-making process, how difficult those decisions actually are. But on top of the difficulties that we've already talked about, the next question addresses something else that may not even be within your control a lot of the time. The question is, what are the biggest challenges that public schools continue to face year after year?
That's a good question, right? One thing that I have become incredibly aware of and probably uber sensitive of when it comes to public schools since I've been sitting in the superintendent's chair is unfunded mandates. I've heard the term when I was coaching and teaching, and then when I was a principal, it kind of impacted me from time to time. But when you sit in the superintendent seat, you become keenly aware of what those words mean. So I looked up. I just looked up and said, okay, I'm aware of every year there's a set of you have to's, right? You have to do this. You have to do that. You have to implement this curriculum. You have to do this policy. There's no extra funding that's coming with that, but we're going to ask you to do it. I think I looked it up. In 1982, since 1982, there's been 700 unfunded mandates that have been implemented in schools.
Yep.
That's challenging. That's challenging. Trying to do what they're asking you to do with the same amount of resources or sometimes less is challenging. And that's impactful. It's impactful. I just feel like that we're being asked to do more with less sometimes. The other thing I think is everybody talks about accountability, right? We've heard that all the time with the state superintendent, no matter who that is. The state is wanting us to be accountable for what we're doing. And I'm all about accountability. But I feel like the methods that we have been asked to utilize, I don't know are the greatest methods. The standardized testing, we're being asked to test a lot. And we're being judged, I think, pretty significantly on those results. And I don't know that I always completely buy into that philosophy or process. So. Those are just a few. We could probably do an entire podcast on some of the other challenges, but those I think are some that come to mind.
Right. And one of the real blessings here, and I'm thankful for it, is that a lot of the unfunded mandates involve curriculum, and we are really fortunate that we have so many talented faculty who can create the curriculum that meets the mandate and does it well without having the expense. A lot of districts don't have that opportunity. They're kind of forced to purchase those things. We're really blessed, but it still doesn't take care of all of them, and there's a lot of things we're asked to do. So I know that that's big. The next question is, what is your vision for the school district? And I know there's one later that, if nothing was an option, if money wasn't an option, time wasn't, what's your vision for the school district?
Well, I think since I've started, it was clear when I interviewed that through the questioning that the board at the time, the types of questions they were asking me, I could tell was important. And since I've been here, I think it's part of my vision, and that is unification of vision. We've had 2 annexations.
Yep.
We have 3 K-8 buildings that all feed into one high school. And there's challenges that come with that. But I think that, this is year 5 for me. I think some of the things that we've done and tried to do has started to bring that to light and has helped with that. I think I feel, at least through conversations with staff and administrators and community, that we have work to do there, but I feel like we're better than we maybe have in the past. So I'm proud of that, but that work needs to continue. I mentioned it before, facilities. My vision for facilities. We've done a fair amount of work in the district in 4 years, frankly, but we have a fair amount of work to do here.
Right.
And my goal is to do something with this building. That's my vision. So I hope we can accomplish that. And then we've done some curriculum work as well. I think that needs to continue too. So I would say those three things have been what I've focused on the most.
Well, that's a really good and clear vision that I think a lot of people get behind and say, yes, we are on board with that. Looking at the things that we have has been, something we've talked about. But the next question actually looks at the other side of this a little bit. From your perspective, what are the biggest challenges that educators are faced with?
Just one. It was plural,
Challenges.
Plural, right? I hate to speak directly for teachers, but
Right.
I will tell you that, again, this is a little bit like what I spoke of in regards to the mandates. I feel like educators, pre-K through 12, are being asked to do more with less.
Yeah.
I think they're being asked to wear hats that they're not trained to wear. They're being asked to do things that they're doing because we have good people that are educators, but they're not trained to do these things. The needs that we're being faced with are different than what the training is being provided, and I feel like that's got to be challenging for our educators. It's got to be frustrating at times because we do come from a place of service. I think we have servant leaders, and our teachers are servants. And when you, as a servant, get frustrated because it's not that you don't want to help, but you don't necessarily know how, right?
Right.
That can become frustrating. So I think that's a challenge we're faced with. I think that the challenges of, any more just the different types of learning that's taking place. And we've had a pretty big shift since COVID.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, I talk to our administrators all the time about don't forget that time period, because I feel like our district did some great things. And our teachers all of a sudden just on a whim adapted and did whatever it took. And we didn't miss a beat. And you hear all the time about the learning gaps that took place because of COVID. They're there. But I'm telling you, I'm forever grateful for the fact that I worked in a district where we did everything we could to serve our kids. So there are many other challenges that I can talk about, but I think those are the ones that I see and hear about a lot.
Well, we've only got time for a couple more questions. Okay. So one of the questions that I know a lot of people are interested in, you mentioned COVID, is e-learning or late starts an option for our district? You kind of addressed that when you talked about some of the things we do with our first question.
Yeah, I think both are always options. If I hear from staff, if I hear from administrators or our community that is a desire, I think it's always worth exploring, right? And I think that both come with a set of challenges, but I think both come with a set of advantages too. So I just feel like whenever the e-learning conversation initially took place, I didn't feel like there was a lot of traction for that. I didn't feel like there was a lot of interest in going down that path. And honestly, for the right reasons, because I feel like some of what I heard at the time was, just to be frank, that didn't feel like it was really worth the time for our kids and for our staff to put into it. It's I don't know what that looks like in other districts, but I know one thing I would be concerned about is, those snow days, let's say they come through the night before, which a lot of times they don't. I don't know how fair it is for me to say we're having e-learning day, especially at 6 o'clock in the morning, and then expect our teachers to be able to prepare something that's relevant and meaningful, right? So that's always a concern for me with e-learning, but I'm open to that. And the late start, absolutely. I think it's something that we could consider.
Okay. Well, one last question.
Sure.
What is your favorite thing about this school district? What makes you proud to be a Knight?
I don't want to do just one.
That's all right. What are your favorite things?
just the people, frankly. When I came here, I was an outsider, right? And I've never really felt that way. I feel like there's a level of support here that is really fun to be a part of.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like when I walk down, of course, my office is in the high school,
Yeah.
But I feel like when I'm walking down the hallways here, there's a level of respect and a level of common courtesy that I really do appreciate here. And I think there's an appreciation for education. There's a desire, right? And of course, coming from a small school myself, I've always wanted to get back to a small school setting, and I just think there's a lot of good with that. So, I mean, I could go on, but I am proud to be a Knight, and I hope to finish my career here for sure, because this is a good place.
Well, we appreciate you answering the questions. It's about all the time that we have for this episode, but is there anything you'd like to close us out with?
I don't think so. I just want to, again, thank you for helping today. And I want to encourage everybody to, if you haven't, again, go to our website, click on, there's an icon that says The ToKnight Show. It has our podcast there. I really want to encourage you to tune in, because they're all listed there. And as we progress and start having more and more conversations about facilities, that's going to be a vital piece of how we can push out some communication. So again, if you're interested in the district and want to learn more, that's a great place to do it. So again, thank you, Mr. Davis, for assisting today.
Thank you.
Look forward to future episodes.
Thank you for listening to The ToKnight Show, a broadcast of Arthur Lovington Outwood Hannon Community Unit School District number 305. Special thanks to today's guests. This podcast is produced for you by the Arthur Lovington Outwood Hannon Broadcasting class.